Coming up on today's episode, I have a little explaining to do about the missed episode, lessons about getting through the rough times, and the difference between growing up and growing old. Up next on Themindhere. Hey, what is up everyone? It's Theguyhere, and welcome to another episode of Themindhere, the bi-weekly podcast where I talk about new knowledge I've learned, projects I'm working on, and current events. Topics may be random, but I hope that with each episode you can come away with a fresh perspective on the universe. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. Alright, so about that bi-weekly podcast thing. I may have missed one episode right after that 50th episode where I proudly proclaimed that I've been incredibly consistent for the past a little over 2 years. But unfortunately, unforeseen circumstances came into play. If any of you follow me on the only social media that I really publicly give any updates besides LinkedIn is Instagram. So if you were interested in following me on Instagram, you can check out the YouTube banner. There should be a media bar where you can find my Instagram there. But besides that, so if you didn't know, I moved to an apartment for my internship. And that process didn't go quite as smoothly as I would have liked it. One of the major issues and the reasons why I couldn't upload an episode was because of the lack of internet. Unfortunately, when I came here, the internet was down and I didn't have any internet for 5 days. So that was quite painful. I had limited data, but data was limited, so I couldn't use that as a substitute. After a little while, they gave me a mobile hotspot while they waited for the company to come and fix it, which was fine, but it wasn't enough to do anything YouTube related because I couldn't upload or download anything, and I could just barely read my emails from that. So it took a little while until mid this week, which would be last week for some of you guys. I start my weeks on Monday, but so anyways, several days ago, I got my internet back. So I've been catching up on a lot of other things. Was tempted to push out this episode, but I've already missed one episode, so gotta bring out something. So here's a quick episode to talk about a little what happened. I'm not stopping these episodes, even if no one's watching them, maybe. That depends, we'll see. But I'm not stopping these episodes, it's just that I ran into some issues, so I couldn't upload that. And I am also going to upload a video giving a tour of the apartment here. Probably couldn't hear that when I turned over. Anyways, the apartment. So if you are listening to audio only, I would highly suggest checking out YouTube in a couple of days to see that episode where I basically give a little of a vlogger style tour from all the way from my original room, my bedroom, to this apartment here. So that's one of the things in the pipeline, but other than that, I've got a few things to work on before I start releasing anything else besides these episodes, but it's coming. So that's a little update for why I was on a little hiatus for the last episode, which given the upload schedule, it's been a while since I've uploaded anything. So here's a little update. So past that, I got started on my internship, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm working with Honeywell, and I gotta say that one of the most important lessons I've learned so far came from one of the technicians that I talked to. So I guess the lesson here would be to talk with people at your work, at your school, anyone, because even if they don't really, if they're not in your realm of your career or anything like that, they still might have insightful knowledge for you. So this technician, we sat down and talked a bit about the company and what he thought, what advices he had, given that I was pretty much the youngest person there, so I was seeking advice from everyone and anyone as much as possible, and everyone loved to give advice, but the advice that he gave was pretty incredible. He asked me what I wanted from this internship, not what the company wanted from me, what I wanted from the company, from the experience, right? And it wasn't something that was like super novel where I hadn't thought of it before, but with the constant lull of just things that felt like I wasn't going anywhere and sort of getting used to it, I sort of backed away from it and went a little more passive to waiting for things to happen kind of thing. Especially that first week where I was doing onboarding, there was a lot of waiting going around. So I wasn't really doing many projects, so sat on my phone, read books, but it wasn't too much going on. I wasn't assigned anything, so I was sort of waiting for things to happen, right? But he gave me the advice that I needed to be searching for and taking on projects that I wanted to do, because then, it would look good on me, yes, but also I would be motivated to do it because I was the one that wanted to do it, right? And taking that initiative would reflect well on everyone that I worked with. Plus, if it was something that I was passionate about, I'd likely do a better job on it. So searching for things that I wanted to do was something that's a little shift from the sort of mindset, the sort of behavioral patterns that I've sunken into, which is waiting for things to happen, right? And there's likely a good reason for it. The pandemic was not something that I had planned or really was any fault of mine going into it. The lack of internet wasn't that either. It wasn't really anyone's fault. But to sort of sit there and wait for things to happen, that is my fault. And not searching for things to do, not searching for some way to change, some motivation, that is an error. So rather than taking a passive view, a passive sort of backseat, sort of a backseat stance of life, I need to take over the steering wheel a little bit more and progress a little and sort of push myself forward. So that's some lessons that I learned for getting through some rough times, whether it be self-inflicted or environmental or a combination of both. So hopefully that helps anyone out there that may be experiencing something similar. So hopefully that helps. The next topic, though, is something that was sort of the result of going searching a little bit rather than waiting. So I began reading a little more from various books and a whole bunch of articles that I've saved in the past where I thought, oh, hey, it's cool. So I wrote it down in a database that I wanted to come back to it. But now I have like 100 articles that I needed to read or wanted to read, right? So I started dwindling down a little bit while I had the spare time here because I couldn't do much else with the internet. I can only read things. So I started reading a few of the articles. And one of the articles that I came across talked a bit about the difference between growing older and growing up. Everyone grows older. That's just a result of existing for longer. You watching me have gotten older. So that's not anything really unique. As long as you're alive, you've gotten older. But not everyone grows up in maturity. So that's something that you can sort of take away when you look at everyone and observe the people that you interact with, right? You can clearly tell some people are a little more mature than others, and they have a little more, they can handle a little more complex thinking, right? So what does this have to do with pretty much anything else that we do in life? Well, if we just take the stance of, okay, some people grow older, some people grow up as well, we can sort of take a look and there's an element of respecting elders and their experience, but then also a recognition that not necessarily that just because someone is older does not necessarily mean that they can think in more complex terms and have the best solution at hand. So seniority is important in some cases, and it definitely brings some value, but we can't take that as the ultimate reason for accepting anyone's opinions, advice, or etc. Right? So just purely from the growing older versus growing up, we can take that as an inference from the article and the lesson that they talked about. But what I noticed and what I wanted to talk about was the difference here is sort of abstracting it out a little bit. Let's apply it to more than just people. Growing up is the process of growing more complex and holding that complexity together. Growing older is like scaling up, right? You're growing bigger as you grow older, and to a certain point, of course, but so scaling in quantity, in size. So this can apply to certain things in the economy, for example, where you can scale up production, you can scale up the economy pretty much definitely, add inflationary forces and just a whole bunch of expansion, and voila, you've got increasing GDP, increasing production, etc., right? That's scaling up. But the other element here that's important is also the growing more complex. Having an economy that's more interwoven, that has products that are richer, that have people that are living lives that are more meaningful. This is something that's important and hard to do. Any economy can really just scale up as long as you keep track of basic economic principles and financial principles. But scaling deeper and having an economy that's more meaningful, that's something that's a little harder to do, because it's not the same as just getting more and more. That complexity isn't stable if you don't learn how to make it stable, right? A more mature thinking, a way of thinking, a more complex thinking takes a lot more energy and a lot more getting used to make it useful, right? So this is similar here with the economy. You could talk about this with pretty much any abstract element, with sciences, with humanities and arts. You can write 100,000 pages for a novel, but if there's no meaning behind it and it's all just fluff, then it's not useful, right? You can scale up, definitely. You can write more, but having more meaning in the words, that's something that is hard to do. So that's the difference between growing older and growing up. Growing up is being able to handle more complexity and have more richness in whatever you're doing. Growing older is simply the process of expansion in some senses. Scaling up would be a better word for it. Anyways, that'll wrap it up for this episode. Just a few quick ideas to pop out there before the end of the week comes along and I miss another episode, so I feel pretty bad about that. But that's just some thoughts that I have. So hopefully you found these helpful. And I appreciate everyone that's been following me. Apologies for that missed episode again. Hopefully that won't happen again. I'll do my best to not let it happen. But these things happen, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll do my best to make future episodes and future videos a lot more better quality. So anyways, take care, stay humble, and I'll see you all in the next episode.